Hello everyone, and welcome back to another makeup and true crime, or true crime and makeup. There is a true crime playlist in the cards, so definitely check out the other videos. This look is using the BH Cosmetics Daisy Marquez palette. It's Skittle inspired. I instantly thought when I done this it was Skittles. Today our story is a little different. I still wanted to shed some light on this. A very sad story. There is a trigger warning. If you're claustrophobic, you may not want to listen to this story. So here is your warning. Today we're going to be talking about the tragic descent of John Edward Jones in the Nutty Putty Cave incident. John Edward Jones decided to explore the Nutty Putty Cave, and things didn't go as planned, and he met a tragic end in a very same cave. This is John Edward Jones' story. John was a 26-year-old medical student and a family man. When John was younger, he explored caves with his dad and brother. He also volunteered as a trapped victim for a Utah cave rescue, an organization funded by his father. The Nutty Putty Cave was known for its narrow passages. The hydrothermal cave is located southwest of Utah Lake, 55 miles from Salt Lake City. John was visiting family for Thanksgiving. John, his wife, and his 13-month-old daughter came to visit and announced their second pregnancy. John and his family decided to explore the Nutty Putty Cave to bond together. John was 6 foot tall and 200 pounds at this time. He also hadn't been caving in many years. John and his family members and 9 other friends entered the Nutty Putty Cave around 8 p.m. on November the 24th, 2009. The party split into 2 separate groups. The children and a few adults explored a less dangerous part of the cave, while the others decided to explore the cave a bit further. Things started going downhill fast. An hour into exploring, John decided to find the area of the cave called the birth canal, a very narrow part of the cave, which cavers would have to navigate this area very carefully. He thought he had found the entrance of the birth canal, and he crawled through it. He started to crawl using his fingers, hips, and stomach, but soon realized he had made a grave mistake. The space John had crawled through was barely 10 inches across and 18 inches high. John hardly had any space to breathe. That's insane. This 6 foot tall, 200-pound man fit into 10-inch space. Oh, isn't this story gut-wrenching? In this moment, he could only go further. There is no option to turn around. He's completely encased in the cave, stuck in a crevice. There's no turning around. So the crevice engulfed John, and he couldn't move any further. The Nutty Putty Cave was very popular, but it wasn't fully mapped. John was stuck in a crevice that was uncharted territory, and John was stuck in an area near Ed's Push inside the cave. John wasn't the first person to get trapped in the Nutty Putty Cave. In 2004, 2 boys nearly lost their lives in separate incidents in the same place where John was trapped now. In one case, rescuers took 14 hours to free a 16-year-old kid using several complex pulleys. Officials closed the cave, and it had only been reopened for about 6 months when John and his family decided to go explore it. John's brother Josh was the first to find him. Josh tried to pull his brother out to no avail. A misfortunate turn of events would occur. As he pulled at John's calves, John would slide even further down the tunnel. Not only is John stuck upside down, but with one hand beneath him and the other hand wedged above him. John began to pray for guidance and for the Lord to save him for his wife and kids' sake. Josh began to travel to the entrance of the cave to call for help. John was trapped 400 feet into this cave and 100 feet below the Earth's surface. First rescuer on the scene was Susie Motella. She arrived at around 12:30 a.m. on November the 25th, and John had been trapped in the Nutty Putty Cave for 3.5 hours. This is upside down with an arm pinned under him and an arm above his head. And he really cannot breathe in this space either. Barely. When Susie found John, all she could see was a pair of shoes, and she introduced herself, and John replied, "Hi Susie, thanks for coming, but I really want to get out." So over the next 24 hours, more than 100 rescuers worked to free John. According to rescuer Sean Roundy, it had been very narrow, very awkward and difficult to get rescuers down there. The rescuers faced many difficulties, and the rescuers' best option was to use a rope and pulley system to get John out from the Nutty Putty cave. This option seemed to be working fine. The rescuers managed to pull John up, and progress was slow, and they could only pull him up 1 foot at a time. Rescue efforts started looking promising, and rescuers also got the opportunity to feed John through an IV tube. Tragedy struck when one of the pulleys broke, and the pulley came loose at its anchor point due to the clayish rock of the cave. This marked the end of the rope and pulley. John was back where he was initially trapped. How devastating. When the rope and pulley system fell, it hit on one of the rescuers, splitting his tongue and almost blinding him as well. Several attempts were made, so not only they're struggling to get John out, but now the rescuers are also getting hurt. So several attempts were made to pull John out of the crevice, and this was made difficult because they couldn't put a rope around his waist, or grab his arms. They couldn't, John's legs, they hit the ceiling when they would try to pull him out, and he would scream out in pain. With his heart struggling to pump blood into his legs, the contact made him scream in pain. The angle of the tunnel meant that they couldn't bend John's body backwards without breaking his legs, and in his weakened state, the shock could kill him. The rescuers thought about breaking his legs, but they didn't want to put any more strain on his body. They even brought wool in hopes that they could grease John up in the canal and pull him out, and the odds were stacked against them. At one point, the rescuers managed to get a walkie-talkie to John so he could talk to his wife. He was hallucinating and thrashing around as his body was under major stress at this point. John had been upside down and stuck in this cave for more than 24 hours, and all the rescue attempts have failed so far. To make matters graver, being upside down was putting a tremendous pressure on his heart. His physical condition was deteriorating. He was having trouble maintaining consciousness. Just before midnight, John stopped responding. They tried many different attempts, but being upside down for that amount of time and being in a tiny crevice, and he couldn't breathe. A medical professional was able to crawl close enough to pronounce John dead due to cardiac arrest and suffocation, and rescue personnel had spent 27 hours trying to save John. 3 days later, rescuers talked to John's family, and they decided that John wouldn't want to put anyone else in danger to retrieve him. So John Edwards Jones' body was never recovered from the cave. It was deemed too dangerous for his retrieval, and as a result, the crevice is now John's final resting place. They used explosives to collapse the ceiling close to John's body. And a week after his tragic death at the Nutty Putty cave, it was sealed permanently with concrete. A plaque is put at the cave entrance to commemorate John's memory. And in 2016, a movie was released called The Last Descent, a survival drama which is based on the 2009 rescue attempt of John Edward Jones in Nutty Putty Cave, and goes through the terrible ordeal faced by John, and an inside glimpse, a dramatization of the emotions John must have felt during his descent. They were able to talk to the rescuers and his wife and get insight for the movie. This is what made me want to do the story and just shed some light on it. This is a terrible tragedy. This is devastating. This is heartbreaking. It's so terribly sad. We were randomly choosing a movie to watch. We like survival movies. We randomly chose this one. It was free to watch on YouTube, and I will link that in the description box if it's still available. I highly recommend watching it, especially if you like survival dramas. And it's like, and then you find out at the end, like, it's based on a true story, and it's like, what? Like, this happened to someone. So I started researching and looking up and gathering all this information and compiling it, because this story is incredibly sad. Like I said, I wish that it had a happy ending. John's wife has since remarried, and gave birth to her 3rd child with her new husband. Yeah, so everyone, that is the sad story of John Edward Jones and the Nutty Putty cave incident. I hope that you guys enjoyed it, and let me know if you would like to hear more stories, or more true life stories, true crime in the near future. I thank you guys so very much for watching. Stay tuned for more true crime. I'm going to link those playlists in the description and in the cards. And thank you guys so very much for watching. Let me know how you enjoyed the story.